hopefully the game's gotten better. I don't think anything has changed dramatically since then. It's just been more about getting everything in the game and playing it and figuring out what's good and what needs to be fixed and just iterating on that over and over again, really. We've done this ever since I've been at Bethesda. That's been our approach, is that we see far too many games that we feel like we know everything we need to know about a year before they come out. And it comes from a couple places. Number one is just when the information is available, that we're big believers in showing stuff that we're going to talk about. So, as the game is developed, not everything is done and ready to be shown way in advance. So it's balancing keeping people interested in what we're doing, and when things are ready to show, keeping that interest all the way up to launch, so that there's new information coming out, things you haven't heard, things you haven't seen, that kind of thing. The other thing is, games in development are never very pretty. The old joke about if you like hot dogs, you really don't want to see how they're made. If you like video games, you probably don't want to know how they're made, because they're often broken and in states of flux, and things are changing constantly. And we are constantly we have no misgivings about changing anything in a game if it's not working right and doing something else. And the more you tell folks earlier on in the process, the better the likelihood that thing is changing. And now people are getting upset because you're changing what you told them, and it used to be like this and now it's like this. And so it makes it a bit easier when you don't start talking about stuff until after you've already changed it 5 times.
Has that been a problem with the voice? Obviously, getting to lay down the voice track and some of the big actors that you use. Do you get the scripts set, or do you call them back in?
It's a mix. So sometimes for somebody like Liam that we do early on, that we just end up doing pickups with him later, and some folks we just we don't bother to record until later in the process, like a Malcolm McDowell, where it's locked and we know exactly what he needs to say, and that just gets done all at once.
How was E3 for you?
Tiring.
Yeah.
It was really good. It has been. I mean, obviously, it's always nice to have people play the game and react positively to it. So.
What sort of reaction have you been getting from the really hardcore fans?
I don't think that reaction has changed much since 2004. So, I think that gets overblown a bit too much. Those guys are very excited and very passionate about what they do, what they're into. They're very into Fallout. But what defines a hardcore fan? I would think that it's up to everybody to make up their own mind as far as whether they like it. I had guys come to me at E3 and say, I've played through Fallout 10 times in 10 different ways, and I absolutely love it. That guy gets to count himself as a hardcore fan just as much as anybody else. And so I think it's just up to everybody can make up their own mind about what they think and what they like. And if it's not the game you want to play, then I would expect you're not going to play it. Yeah, although we didn't really find that to be too much of a problem with Oblivion, where it was the 4th game in the Elder Scrolls, and that we had a lot of folks that have been with us since 1994. And we also had folks who said, I've never played a role-playing game in my life, I can't stand role-playing games, but I'm really interested in this, or I really enjoyed this. And so I think folks can come into a game or a series at any point, regardless of whether or not they're new to it or have been around for a while, so long as what you're providing looks interesting, is compelling, is providing an experience that they're connecting with on some level. Like, that's something I want to play, whether I played 1 or 2 or not.
Have you gone about balancing between having a seasoned player go in and have fun with the game from the start and a newcomer?
Usually what you find is that folks that are seasoned or more hardcore, they may pick up the core elements a bit quicker, but usually what you find they end up doing is they start delving into the stats and the numbers way more, and power gaming, whereas the casual guys just play. They just play. They pick up a gun and start shooting stuff, and for some of them it just becomes like a story-driven shooter kind of thing. And, I'm putting my points in the big guns. I found this big gun, and when I level up, I do big guns and small guns and energy weapons. Like, it's just it's a story-driven shooter. There's nothing that says that guy's not allowed to play the game like that. Like, it's about role-playing, whatever kind of character you want to play. You just want to be all about the combat and talk to people and go blow something else up. Go right ahead. But if you're all into dialogue and the karma system and how you're going to talk to people, and I want to use stealth or I want to focus. You totally can. But the guys who gravitate towards that tend to be the more hardcore guys that get into exactly which perks line up perfectly, which skills, and by this level I'm going to be maxed out on these 3 skills. And that's great. That's what it's there for. I mean, I think we moved it because we thought that would make the best game. Like what I think we're able to do from a first or third person that you can't do from an isometric is put the player in the world where you're walking down the street and those destroyed buildings aren't things that you're looking down on, but they're up all around you. That you're really sort of experiencing all this destruction that's around you, as opposed to almost being a bit detached from it. That it just it does give you a much bigger sense of place. That leaving the vault for the first time. I still think that that's a really cool effect. You come outside, you've lived your whole life in the vault, you come out for the first time and you're blinded by daylight and the whole world gets revealed to you and you're like, holy shit, I can go anywhere here? Like, that's really cool. It's hard to give the player that same level of, this is all free for you to go to if you're 60 feet up in the air looking down at your little guy. And I also think, honestly, it is in keeping with what the franchise has been about. I mean, you look at the first Fallout, it was pushing the graphics for its day, and it did full lip syncing and animated faces, and it did everything. It didn't just do one thing. It didn't do great dialogue, otherwise it would have been, Zork. It was, for its time, it had graphics, and it had really bloody combat and violence, and interesting characters and dialogue and all those things. So I think we just tried to approach it in a way that we felt like we could best bring all of those things to life. Yeah, I got to get this one out the door first. We didn't buy the series so that we could make 3 and then put it away and never do it again. So we own Fallout. It is entirely ours.
We own the multiplayer.
We have licensed back to Interplay the rights to do an MMO under certain conditions, but it still belongs to us. It's ours, just like the Elder Scrolls is ours. So I would say somewhere down the road that will probably certainly happen, but let's make sure that 3 is good or nobody's going to care about 4. So the approach on Fallout has been to steer more heavily towards things are what they are in the world, and that when you start the game, you can go to places in the world that will be very easy for you, or sort of an acceptable level, I guess, and there are going to be places in the world that will be far too challenging for you. That you can go to places in the world where you find creatures or characters, whatever, that you have to fight that are too tough for you to deal with, and you have to leave and come back. And when you come back, they will be as they were when you left it. We may take some licenses with every now and then, giving this super mutant a different weapon than he might have had if he had showed up at a different level. But in general, we don't do it the way Oblivion is. It's much more set, with a few exceptions. Places where you potentially can get to and can't necessarily get out of. That if we're simply cavalier and get you stuck somewhere at level 5 and you really should have been level 10, well, now you're just screwed. Like you can't actually keep going. You're just never going to get anywhere. So we try and be cognizant of not getting the player stuck.